Tolino doesn't make things themselves. They haven't in forever. The last several generations have been directly mimicking the Kobo line of devices, and this is because Rakuten Kobo takes the reins on manufacturing. But that's not a bad thing. Instead of Tolino desperately spending money and trying to catch up, raising prices in the process, they utilize existing shells, good shells. This means you get the exact same hardware experience with a different software delivery. However, it is strange that they're made in two separate countries. Kobo devices are made in Taiwan. Tolino products are made in China. So let's dive in, starting with the UI. Tolino. Aw yeah. So first thing we want to go over is, yes, this is the same thing as the Clara 2E, which is just means that it has the same composition, it's got the same plastics involved. It's made in a different country, which is strange, but it is the same thing other than the Tolino branding on the back. Now, we are going to just casually go through this, and not to say that we're not going to respect the process, because we do, and we very much appreciate Tolino for sending us these samples. But outside of the European crowd, Tolino doesn't really move the needle because they're a lesser known company. But aside from them being the same, the UI is completely different. When you click the settings, and this is the most important part, is that you have to choose the shop you're going to deal with. The device is in English, and it can be in any language you choose, but the shop itself is very important because you can actually choose multiple shops. So for example, the first one being Thalia, which is out of Germany. This one is like this, and it's only going to be in German. You actually can't change the language of these stores themselves. So whether you deal with an Italian store, one from the Netherlands, you actually can't change the UI language, the user interface language. It's only going to be in German, and everything's going to be in the respective currency as well. I can't read any of that because I don't read German. I can hold my phone up to it and translate everything via Google Lens, but I won't do that. But it does look like you can read some contents there. You might get a sample, which laissez-probe means probably, and you can actually buy it via that, and it'll take you into the sign-up menus, and you can add your payment and stuff like that. Now, here's another thing. Although you can sign up, like you see here, being a Canadian in Japan, I am able to log into Thalia. You might not be actually able to make purchases based on your credit card information, your billing, your shipping, and things like that. Another important note is out of the 16 gigabytes you actually get on the back of the box on the Tolino Shine, you only get 12.4, and out of that 12.4, you only get 11.8. And this is with one ebook and one small PDF on here that is no more than 4 MB. Because we're naming all the differences between this and the Kobo, let's go over the settings. So you have reading settings, and you can do the reading experience from Tolino. You can click on this to learn more. It gives you a little bit of information about scrolling, battery saving, optimized UI, and it is actually a beta thing, so it still is under testing, but as you do more OTA updates, over-the-air updates, you will be able to advance that further. You can enable different types of encryption, yes or no. You can choose left-handed mode if you want more of the priority to be on your left hand, and you can do screen refresh every amount of pages. You can do every 100th page or never, which is actually recommended. You can force a refresh on this device anytime you open a menu and things like that. You can swipe up for the bottom to go home, that'll refresh the screen, etc. You do have language as well, because it's a European device, there's European languages, but there are only 6, one of them being English, and there's no Asian languages whatsoever. There's no Pinyin, there's no Hangul, there's no Japanese or Chinese or anything like that, so you're a little bit limited there. You do have illumination, which will show you at the very end, but under the illumination, which isn't under display for some reason, is dark mode. So you can actually turn on dark mode off and on via the trigger there. It is kind of strange how it's under the glow light option, but that's just where they put it instead of a dedicated display. Numbers lock, you can set a password on your unit so that no one else can get in except for you. You have date and time with different time zones, or you can set it automatically based off of Wi-Fi, and you have advanced settings as well. Cloud services, sleep mode, sleep screen, what you'd want it to pull from your device storage or the last book read, you can actually browse your storage in your gallery to choose what it's going to display. Otherwise, it'll just be those, or it'll just be the face of the Tolino guy. And you can go into demo mode. Demo mode is useless, except for the fact that you have a store and you want to show off the Tolino. You set it in demo mode and it just cycles through things. This would be if you had a storefront, prop it up on the display stand, and that's all you really need that for. It's very prominently in the settings, and it doesn't require like backdoor entries or developer settings. It's very strange how it's there, but it is what it is. You can also go to My Accounts and Family. You can do some DRM settings. That was that encryption, LCP. You have web browser, and then My Family, where you can actually add different people, different profiles, and share books with them. But of course, it will have to go through the bookstore that you initially set up on this device when you started it. Because this is the same as the Rakuten Kobo Clara 2E, which we're saying a lot because a lot of people skip through this video to different segments. This is the same unit, therefore the reading experience in terms of display is exactly the same. Tolino doesn't even bake on any additional screen protectors or sealants or anything because it's made from the same manufacturer. So you're going to feel zero difference between this and the Kobo. So given that, it displays very beautifully. The PPI is 300. It's very high quality. There's literally no problem with it from a design standpoint to your eyes. Everything changes when you get into the UI elements because this is not going to be a Kobo from here on. Now we're into something that is just not Kobo. There's no advanced menu to get a side-by-side of what it looked like before and after. You now have a single scroller bar, and your line spacing and margins are no longer scroller bars, they are selectors, and you only get 3. The Kobo gives you a bunch, and they give you an advanced mode to go even further, but they don't do that on here. You only get 8 fonts as well. You can choose a font. Everything changes live in the background, so in that regard, it's quite nice. Long pressing on something, you're going to get different settings as well. You get highlight, write note, look up, and translate. You can translate to various languages. It's not quite as intuitive and instant as it is on an Amazon, which automatically just uses the pop-up window and Bing to do the translation. This one actually involves you going into the translation dictionary section, choosing what language to what language, going through different pages of it. It's a little bit more drawn out and not as fun and intuitive as an Amazon, and actually it's just far more steps and a little bit laborious to actually get to the end. We will look at the keyboard, of course. They do have a stack design much like the Kobo and not like the Amazon. Traditionally, keyboards are never stacked like that, ever. They're staggered. They should be staggered. You get a secondary and tertiary set of characters. We can do $ and all that kind of stuff. If you have complex passwords for different things, you can highlight, of course. It'll leave a highlight like that. Based on the font you're going to use and the line spacing, it might overflow into other things, so just keep that in mind. You can bookmark up top, and the rest of the things would be you can rotate via software, you can information about the book, and you can turn off or on the glow light, which we will show you in a second. We're not going to show PDFs because this is a 6-inch screen. You're not going to care about PDFs on this, and recently in the past 3 years there's so many large screen choices that you don't need to worry about PDFs on here. The manga experience, much like some other devices like Barnes & Noble, doesn't really format itself all that well, but oh my goodness does it look good. This looks phenomenal. The PPI, the fact that there's no Wacom layer, there's no glass layer, there's no screen protector on top of all that sealing it in. No, this is not the exposed screen. That is a myth. E-ink screens, the actual EPD, the electronic paper display, is never exposed. Ever. Except on maybe test boards. It almost always has a layer of protectant. But given what this is as a finalized, tooled, and completed consumer product, it looks so good. A lot of that has to do with the PPI, but a lot of that also has to do with the fact that the device is small. It's a 6-inch device, meaning that if you were to watch 4K on your phone or 1080p or 1440, it's not gonna be a world of difference because it's so naturally tiny that even if this was 720p, it would look almost as dense and as clear and crisp. But if you have to nitpick and you dive in a little bit deeper, you will notice that it does look really good. Because it's not actually written anywhere, and it's made in a different country as the Kobo, we actually don't know if they've carried over exactly every single thing from the LED gel layer they used on the Kobo to this. Typically, they are the exact same thing. However, in the past, Tolino has been known to remove things, certain wireless communications, different storage sizes. So they actually might be different in this regard, but it's hard to tell. You can use the illumination like that, and it does change live, which is really cool, because the Kobo actually doesn't change live. You have to let go and then it does it. So that's different in and of itself, but that's all software. Now you can go to the warm light, which is very orange, or you can stay right around the center and get this pure white. That looks so good. There is nothing more to say. There's no complaints whatsoever. This device has been tooled and compiled perfectly to the point where there's no spillage, there's no overexposed sections, there's no gray puffing. A lot of that has gone away since like 2017 when glow lights kind of stabilized, but needless to say, this is looking perfect. Outside of multiple bookstores, there's literally no reason to buy a Tolino over a Kobo. As we said, it's the exact same hardware with no changes. In fact, sometimes you get less on a Tolino than you do on a Kobo, as they remove certain things like storage and features. But for our European crowd, it can be beneficial and ease of logistics and tax savings to simply buy a Tolino from Europe. For GoodyReader.com, this is Peter.